My name is Belle Manuel. I'm a fantasy author who's been writing for, about a decade now. I primarily dabble in dark fantasy and I use every age range from YA to adult. I like to have loads of books accessible to people who like different, genre standards, age standards, things like that. And I had a book released just last month and I have another one releasing in November. So I am a busy, busy girl.
I can't. I'm actually looking forward to reading your book. And seeing how the story is because it definitely looks up my alley and interest.
I
So,
hope it is.
to start us off, what inspired the Shael Chronicles?
So I always liked certain takes on traditional fae content or fairy content, especially in the vein of Holly Black. And especially with the world of Cruel Prince, I always felt like I wanted more of that world. And I just, not in a bad way, I just want more. It's so good. So I kind of wanted to play around with those things. So I went off and studied and read about all these old myths and fairy tales and just started really having fun with it and put my own little twist on it. And so far, seems people like it at least a little bit.
I think all the people who loved The Cruel Prince and they wanted, just like you said, wanted more, they've just gone straight to your to your books, which is really good. What drew you to writing?
Um, I figured out I could. I was a really big avid reader as a kid, and one day around middle school, it just kind of hit me like I could do this. I could write a story. And then by middle or by high school, I was printing off horrible, horrible stories that were basically Twilight fan fiction into these binders for all my friends around high school. So it's been in me since I was old enough to figure out how to do it.
I think we all started writing our own little fan fictions when we were in high school as well. I think where you sort of start and then you go into writing your own stories as well.
Absolutely.
How did you choose which character to center the story around?
For me, it's always pretty easy. It's always going to be a female main character for me. Even if I mean, if I have dual POVs, then that's fine. I'll have a male character. But so it's easy for me to figure it out from there. Like, okay, so we need a female main character. Is she older? Is she younger? What kind of world are we living in? What are her personal desires? And I build around that. And then it's, oh, well, she would fit with this story best because if she wants this, I've got to keep it from her, of course, and make her work for it. So I try to build a story around that character, but I also have loads and loads of ideas and scenes that are always running through my mind. So as soon as I can find a character to throw it on, that's what's happening.
Being one of your books as well. What is your process for writing your books? Does it change depending on the age group you're writing for, or is it pretty much the same throughout?
It's pretty much the same when it comes to ages. The only time it changes for me personally is when it comes to starting the story. Some stories come to me in bits and pieces, so I'll just focus on writing those bits and pieces and eventually build them into something. But then I have other stories where it's been in my head so long, I know exactly how to start it and I can go from start to midpoint before I start, having to jump around. Um, but by the age range, that really just dictates honestly how dark can we get. Like we have things like Throne of Glass that are available for YA, but that still doesn't compare to like Ninth House from Lee Bardugo. Like those are two different levels of dark and have, very different age appropriate levels. So that's all that for me, the age affects is just how dark we could get.
What's your approach for world and character building?
Kind of just go with what sounds cool for that character. Like if you have a character who's really into music, having a world system with magic where they can make sounds that, maybe, we can't even imagine would be great for them. And so you kind of build on that kind of magic instead of lightning or fire. You build on like the arts, and that's more pushed in this world. You find ways to do that. But I just find it fun to think of different realities like, well, what if, the sky was purple? Well, what would cause that? Things like that for sci-fi. Or well, what if we did have magic to answer this? How would it affect technological advancement in that world? And you just build from there for me at least.
The what Answering the what if questions are always so much fun when you're writing your books.
Absolutely. What if's the best part?
Yeah. Did you have a favorite moment to write in the book?
I think when it comes to the fairy throne, my favorite scene to finally write was when Prince Caddick officially meets Liserly for the first time, just because that scene got drafted so many times. It was so hard to get the tone right that it's my favorite now. It's so subtle. It's just a couple paragraphs, but it's meant to like introduce the reader and it all makes sense later as it comes together. So
The hardest one to and the long a lot of effort is the best one, as always. Uh,
It seems so. Labors of love, right?
yes. Which of your characters do you relate to the most and why?
For the very thrown Liserly, she's my little self-insert, right? Every author usually has a little bit. She's just this nerdy little character who is fascinated by fairies and loves to just spend her life in a book. And I was like, that's me. But what I do in this world, she's a little different. She makes some bad decisions I wouldn't make, but you got to make some bad decisions to have a good book. She's very into education and just obsessing over knowing every little detail, which is something I often do. If I learn a topic I like, I obsess over it until I know the ridiculous details about it.
I always like deep diving into different areas as well, just to I need to know everything as well about different topics. Uh, how
Right?
how has writing and publishing a book changed the way you see yourself, or if it has?
Um, I think I give my stories a little more credit now because I see certain reviews come up and it's the same reader who's read like all of my books, or I'll see new readers coming across my stuff, all the time. And it feels nice to see that they're liking it. Like, I guess it just changed the confidence I have in my writing. I'm not overly confident thinking I'm going to write the next Harry Potter, but maybe,
Could be
maybe one day.
something to aspire to. I think that was
Got to have goals.
the really good top goals to have. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer or have inspired you in your writing?
Lee Bardugo is probably I love the way she writes. She can give you very simplistic YA fantasy, or she can give you dense, dark academia at the same time. And I love an author with range. And at the same time, when you read her work, it's definitively hers. She writes a specific way, she describes things a specific way, and I like that. I love the way she builds her worlds. And then Sarah J. Maas is another one with just how entertaining her writing is. No matter how you feel about her writing, it is entertaining and it is gripping, and everyone is reading it. Your mom is reading it, your teacher's reading it, everyone reads her work. So that's something to aspire to, is to be able to be accessible to so many different types of people and have them all enjoy your story. So that's really aspirational. So Bardugo and Mass, Holly Black up there, just because she's so interesting with the things she does.
I think you can't argue that Mass has entertaining books, even if you don't like the genre or anything that keep you entertained.
Absolutely. You can sit there and be like, oh, this is dumb. Turn the next page and just keep going because
Yeah.
it's so entertaining. And that is a skill.
And it's like one of her books are always recommended to people, no matter if you're an adult or young adult, it's always being recommended as well.
Yep.
What advice would you give to a writer working on their first book? And if you have been given any advice when you were writing?
I would say keep writing, and you need to read. I see this very new trend of writers who do not read and then they wonder why their stories aren't engaging. Well, you haven't read. You don't know what readers want. You've got to read. Reading should be what you're doing when you're not writing, and of course, working because we have to pay bills.
Yeah.
Um, but I would just say keep writing. Your first draft is supposed to be terrible, right? It's supposed to, you're not supposed to love it. Your fifth draft, you should even, we even see big name authors like Lee Bardugo has even talked about that, how she would change things in Shadow and Bone. And that was like 10 books ago for her.
Yeah.
So don't let those things hold you back. Keep writing and read books.
And you can't go wrong with reading books and reading
You
any
really
genre.
can't.
What's your favorite writing snack or drink if you have one?
I have these little freeze dried apple crisps. I love them. And then I like Doritos, probably a little too much.
Can't go
They're so
wrong.
good.
Can't go wrong with Doritos. They're just the go-to chip.
They really are.
Do
That and
you?
Pringles. Oh, Pringles are the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah. Do you play music while you write? And if so, what's your favorite music?
Yes, I actually have playlists for all my books too. I actually have QR codes at the backs of my paperback, so you can go find them on Spotify. Um, I listen to a lot of hard rock, even though it might sound incongruous with the worlds I build. I do. I listen to everything though. I've got rap, German rock, hard rock, bubblegum pop, Ariana Grande, you name it. It's probably on one of my playlists. I try to find things that fit the mood of the scene I'm trying to write. So if I'm writing a battle scene, Ariana Grande is not really going to fit that very well. But if I'm writing a dance scene, J Balvin might fit that a lot better than, Puddle of Mud might fit it. So I try to build playlists around the theme of the scene. And then I do, like I said, I have those playlists for readers who enjoy that.
I always find when I'm reading, I always have something in the background, no matter what it is or what a book is. I need to have something going in the background for me to read.
I'm the same way.
Who has been your biggest supporter of your writing?
My biggest supporter is probably my very good author friend, Victoria J. Price. She has been there from book one, helping with critiques and just being a really great writer friend who also helped me learn a lot of things about being self published. So she's just the best. She's awesome. And I, every time I have a new story for or a new idea for a story, she's just as excited as if it's the first time she's heard it. And I love that. That is what you need in a writing friend.
I love how authors are supporting each other and like you always have like a little buddy that you can sort of talk to and bounce off as well.
Oh
And
yeah,
my
it's fun, especially because you don't have to explain your weirder ideas. They just get it. They're writers too. So you
eh,
don't have to explain why you have this trope. And they're like, okay, well, yeah, you should do this instead. Do this with it. I'm like, oh, okay, great.
there's no you don't and no trope that is too weird for for any
Oh
writers.
yeah, no.
And my final question is, do you have a favorite um book from your childhood that you like to read, go back to sometimes?
Definitely Harry Potter. That was one of the first long books I ever read. And of course, J.K. Rowling wrote it so that you age with Harry, is how they were getting released back in the day. So I was around the same age as Harry, not exactly, but within a couple of years. So I got to grow up. And so that made it a very formative experience. We had midnight releases at the Walmarts in Texas, and it was a whole deal. They had these old sorting quizzes you do on pen and paper to figure out what house you're in. Like that completely changed the idea of what reading was. Before, age 9, reading was just very, very childish books, very not, and I don't mean that in a bad way, right? But chapter books, simple books. But Harry Potter was a novel for children, and it really was. And then that gave me a series of unfortunate events, and it just the pile keeps going. I think what's it called? The I can't think of it. There's a kids series with dragons in it that was also very good that I like. Aragon.
Aragon, yeah.
I can't believe I forgot Aragon. I'm gonna get
And
shamed for that.
the last book like just released, so everyone had to wait so many years
You have to
for
wait
it.
so long. It's like George R. R. Martin.
Yeah, we're still waiting for him.
Still waiting.